I'm Sienna Harwood, 25, and my little brother dropped a message in the family group chat Friday night. Don't come to the barbecue this weekend. My new wife says you stink up the whole party. Mom and Dad spammed heart reactions like it was hilarious. I only typed back one word. Got it. If you've ever been treated like the family joke, hit like and subscribe right now with notifications on, because missing this story would hurt more than they ever did. You know what the worst part is? It wasn't even the words. I've heard worse. I've survived worse. What broke something inside me that Friday night wasn't my brother telling me I wasn't welcome. It was watching my parents react to it like it was the funniest thing they'd seen all week. Heart emojis. Crying laughing faces. My mother, my own mother, added 3 more hearts after my father's. Like they were celebrating. Like my humiliation was entertainment. I sat there in my apartment alone, staring at that screen until my eyes burned. The blue light flickered across my face in the dark, and I kept reading it over and over, thinking maybe I misunderstood. Maybe the tone didn't translate through text. Maybe they'd realize how cruel it was, and someone would say something. Anything. But the chat just kept moving. They started talking about what kind of meat to grill, what time people should arrive, what drinks to bring, as if I'd never existed in that conversation at all. I set my phone down on the desk, and I swear it felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. My hands were shaking. Not from anger, not yet. From this cold, hollow realization that the people who were supposed to protect me, who were supposed to love me unconditionally, found joy in watching me get torn down. And the thing that made it unbearable? I wasn't even surprised. Somewhere deep down, I'd been waiting for this moment my entire life. If you've ever swallowed pain just to keep the peace, tell me I did in the comments. I'll see you there. Let me take you back because this didn't start Friday night. This started when I was 7 years old and my brother was 5, and my parents drove him to soccer practice every single day while I sat at the kitchen table doing homework alone. They never asked if I wanted to play a sport. They never asked what I was interested in. I was just expected to be self-sufficient, responsible, the one who didn't need attention. And I learned that lesson well. Too well. My brother was the golden one. The loud one. The one who could do no wrong even when he was doing everything wrong. He failed classes, they hired tutors and blamed the school. I got straight A's, they said I was too serious and needed to loosen up. He wrecked the car at 16, they bought him another one. I bought my own car with money I saved from working 2 jobs through college. They said I was showing off. Do you see the pattern? Because I didn't. Not for years. I kept thinking if I just worked harder, achieved more, proved myself enough, they'd finally see me. They'd finally be proud. I paid off his credit card debt twice. Twice. Thousands of dollars he racked up trying to impress girls, buying things he couldn't afford, living a life he hadn't earned. And when I told him he needed to stop, that he needed to take responsibility, you know what he said? You're just jealous because I know how to have fun. My parents laughed. They actually laughed and told me to give him a break. I became the invisible backbone of that family. The one they called when they needed something done. The one who showed up, fixed things, cleaned up messes, and never complained. And my reward? Being treated like the family joke. The weird one. The one who worked too much and needed to get a life. They couldn't see that I had a life, they just weren't part of it anymore. They chose not to be. Every accomplishment I earned, they minimized. Every milestone I reached, they forgot. My college graduation? My father left early to catch a football game. My first major promotion? My mother said, "That's nice, honey," and immediately started talking about my brother's new girlfriend. I spent decades auditioning for a role I was never going to get, and the audition fee was my dignity. If you've ever been the responsible one and still got blamed for everything, just say same. I want to know I'm not the only one. So Friday night, I read that message again. And then again. And something inside me clicked into place. It wasn't the anger I expected. It was this eerie, calm clarity. Like someone turned on the lights in a room I'd been stumbling through in the dark for 25 years. My brother's insult didn't break me. I'd been insulted before. I'd been dismissed, overlooked, underestimated my entire life. But this was different. Because this time my parents didn't just ignore it, they celebrated it. They found joy in my pain. They bonded over my humiliation. And in that moment, I finally understood something I'd been too afraid to admit. They didn't love me less because I failed them. They resented me because I succeeded without them. I was the mirror that showed them their own failures. I was the daughter who didn't need saving, and that made them uncomfortable. I was the proof that their favoritism hadn't broken me, and that made them angry. So they tried to cut me down to a size they could manage, a size that made them feel better about themselves. And you know what I did? I didn't fight back. I didn't type a paragraph explaining my hurt. I didn't call anyone. I didn't send voice messages or screenshots or ask, "How could you?" I gave them exactly what they deserved. One word. Got it. 2 letters. 1 period. Final. Then I flipped my phone over, screen down, and let the silence fill the room. And for the first time in my entire life, that silence felt like power. Not pain. Power. They waited for me to beg, to explain, to apologize for existing. But I didn't. I gave them nothing. And that nothing was the loudest thing I'd ever said. Be honest. Would you have confronted them? Or walked away like I did? Drop your answer so I can read it later. Saturday morning came. I woke up expecting something. An apology. A check-in. Even a fake, guilt-driven, "Hey, you okay?" from someone in that family. But my phone stayed silent. Dead silent. No missed calls. No texts. No one wondering if maybe, just maybe, they'd gone too far. And that silence? It didn't hurt. It revealed. It pulled back the curtain on exactly where I stood in their hierarchy of importance. I wasn't even worth a follow-up insult. While they were laughing at their barbecue, passing around potato salad, and congratulating my brother on his marriage to a woman who thought bullying his sister was acceptable, I was in my office. My corner office. On the 18th floor of a building they'd never bothered to visit. I was signing off on an expansion project that would take our surgical robotics division into international markets. My name, Sienna Harwood, the family joke, was on contracts worth more money than they'd see in 3 lifetimes combined. I oversee a team of 47 engineers, designers, and medical professionals who are revolutionizing minimally invasive surgery. We're developing technology that will save lives, reduce recovery times, and change the future of medicine. I've presented at conferences in 7 countries. I've been quoted in journals my parents can't pronounce. I've built something that matters, something that will outlast me, something that has nothing to do with them. But to them, I'm just the weird sister who works in a lab. They genuinely believe I'm some kind of mid-level nobody shuffling papers in a cubicle somewhere. They've never asked what I do. They've never asked to see my office. They've never once shown interest in the thing I've dedicated my entire adult life to building. And the painful irony? I used to desperately want them to ask. I used to rehearse in my head how I'd explain my work in simple terms so they'd understand. I'd imagine my father finally saying he was proud, my mother finally bragging about me to her friends, my brother finally seeing me as someone worth respecting. But that fantasy died Friday night when they chose cruelty over curiosity. They rewrote my worth to make themselves comfortable. They turned my success into something threatening, so they diminished it. They couldn't celebrate what they didn't understand, so they mocked it instead. And I spent years accepting that treatment because I thought family was supposed to be unconditional. But I learned the hard way that unconditional love isn't real when the conditions are invisible. The silence from my family that Saturday didn't create a wound. It confirmed one that had been festering for years. And once I stopped waiting for them to care, I finally had space to breathe. If anyone has ever rewritten your worth to make themselves feel taller, comment, "Not anymore." Saturday morning, 9:17 a.m. I was reviewing quarterly reports when my assistant buzzed my office line. Her voice had this confused edge to it. "Ms. Harwood, your brother and his wife are here in the lobby." They said it's urgent and they need to see you immediately. I stopped breathing for a second. The same people who told me I wasn't welcome at a backyard barbecue were now standing in the marble and glass lobby of a Fortune 500 biomedical corporation. The same brother who thought I was embarrassing was now asking for me by name at a security desk that requires clearance just to get past. I told her to send them up. I didn't change my posture. Didn't fix my hair. Didn't prepare some speech. I just swiveled my chair toward the door and waited. The elevator ride up to the 18th floor must have been the longest 60 seconds of their lives. I imagine them standing there in their casual Saturday clothes, him in a polo shirt, her in whatever outfit she thought was appropriate for insulting family members. Watching the floor numbers climb and realizing with each ding that they'd made a terrible miscalculation. When my assistant opened the door and they walked in, I watched their faces in real time. My brother froze in the doorway. His mouth opened slightly. His eyes scanned the room, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, my name engraved on a glass plaque by the door, the wall of awards and patents and framed photos from medical conferences. Behind my desk, a scale model of our latest robotic surgical system, the one that's been featured in every major medical journal this year. His wife's face went pale. Actually pale. She looked at me, then at the office, then back at me like she was trying to reconcile the person she'd spent weeks mocking with the woman sitting in front of her in a tailored suit behind a desk that probably cost more than their wedding. Then the scream came. Not from anger. From shock. From the devastating realization that she'd just humiliated someone who could end careers with a single phone call. Someone who had more power, more money, more respect than she'd ever have. And she knew it instantly. My brother stammered something. Sienna, we didn't know you. I held up one hand. Calm. Controlled. No emotion in my voice. You didn't know because you never asked. His wife was shaking. Actually shaking. She tried to apologize, tripping over her words, saying it was a joke, saying she didn't mean it, saying she'd never have said it if she knew. And that's the part that made my blood turn to ice. She wouldn't have said it if she knew I was successful, which means she thought it was perfectly acceptable to say as long as I was nobody, as long as I was beneath her. My brother looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. He kept glancing at the door like he was calculating how fast he could leave. But I wasn't done. You came here for something. What is it? Silence. Because I have a meeting in 20 minutes with people who actually respect my time. So if you have something urgent to say, now's the moment. More silence. Then my brother, voice cracking, asked if I could help him get a job. Apparently, he'd been fired from his sales position for the third time, and his wife was pregnant, and they needed money, and he thought maybe I could put in a word somewhere. I smiled. Not a warm smile. A knowing one. Got it, I said. The same 2 words I'd typed in the group chat. And he understood immediately. The same dismissive, final, conversation-ending response he'd normalized was now being used on him. And it shattered him in ways I didn't expect. His face crumpled. His wife grabbed his arm. And I watched something break in him that I don't think will ever be repaired. I didn't kick them out. I just returned to my computer and started typing. They stood there for another 30 seconds, waiting for me to say something else, to soften, to be the person who always forgave them. But I didn't. I let the silence do the work. They left without another word. Some lessons don't require revenge. Just truth. If silence ever protected your peace, type Moonlight. It's our little signal. I used to think love meant sacrifice. That being a good daughter meant swallowing pain. That family was supposed to hurt sometimes, and my job was to endure it with grace. I used to shrink myself into shapes that fit their expectations, hoping one day they'd finally see me and say, "You were enough all along." But that day never came, and I finally realized it never would. Not because I wasn't enough, but because they'd already decided I wasn't, and no amount of achieving, giving, or proving would ever change their minds. I spent 25 years chasing approval from people who had no intention of giving it. I poured myself into a family that treated me like an inconvenience. I showed up for people who couldn't even bother to text me back. And the saddest part? I convinced myself that was normal. That unconditional love meant accepting conditional cruelty. But sitting in my office that Saturday morning, watching my brother and his wife walk away in shame, I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel powerful. I felt free. Finally, devastatingly, beautifully free. Free from the weight of their judgment. Free from the need to explain myself. Free from the exhausting performance of pretending their opinions mattered. They'd spent decades making me feel small, and I'd spent decades letting them. But the moment I stopped participating in my own diminishment, the entire dynamic collapsed. I don't hate them. I don't wish harm on them. I don't fantasize about revenge or public humiliation or karma catching up. I simply don't need them anymore. And that indifference, that complete absence of emotional investment, is the most powerful thing I've ever felt. They'll tell their version of this story, I'm sure. I'll be the villain, the cold sister who turned her back on family, the ungrateful daughter who got too big for her roots. And honestly, I don't care. Let them rewrite history. Let them paint me as the villain. I'd rather be the villain in their story than the victim in mine. The truth is, my life began the moment I stopped waiting for their permission to live it. My success isn't about them. My happiness isn't despite them. My peace exists in a space they can't touch because I built it without them. I used to think healing meant reconciliation, that I'd have to forgive them and rebuild and find some way to make it work. But I've learned that sometimes healing means walking away. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to stop expecting people to become who you need them to be. My story isn't about revenge. It's about freedom. The moment you stop begging to be seen, you finally become visible to yourself. And that version of you, the one you've been hiding to make others comfortable, is the only one that matters. I'm still Sienna Harwood. I'm still 25. But I'm no longer the girl who shrinks herself to fit into spaces that were never meant for her. I'm no longer the daughter desperate for crumbs of affection. I'm no longer the sister who apologizes for existing. I'm the woman who chose herself. Finally. Completely. Unapologetically. And if that makes me the villain in their story, then I'll wear that title with pride. If you've ever chosen peace over blood, type, I choose peace. Let's see how many survivors are watching.